Well, y'all, I just want to let you know, this is a conversation. This is a conversation, first of all. Whenever Renee and Neil make it back to join us, we'll officially start. I'm going to be asking these couples a handful of questions to get us warmed up. We're going to start a conversation, start a discussion, start a chance to kind of swim in a conversation that usually happens like at the margins or by accident or in the occasional Facebook post, and most often in offices that look like this. So, some of you know I work as an intimacy coach, and I spent the whole day having these conversations behind a closed door with this like snaky thing that sits under the door to block even more of the sound, with the sound of the ocean in the lobby to block even more of the sound, behind a locked door up a flight of stairs. Do you understand the layers of privacy that are usually surrounding these conversations? So today we're doing something different. We're inviting people that you might know each other, but I know most of these couples don't know the people who are here. And then people will be watching this, inviting folks into a conversation that is usually cloaked in so much confidentiality or privacy. Okay. Getting out loud about, what's it really like to love over time? What are the things that keep us together? What are the hard things that we have lived through or are living through? What are we learning? What are we struggling with? I said to a client today, so we're not going to tie up all these threads in a bow, nor would I want to, but all these threads are important. Today is not a day to tie things up in a bow. It's possibly a day to kind of get messy and then get honest. And in doing that, give permission, right? For all of us to be a lot more human in our relationships. Okay. I could use a tech assistant at this moment because I want to see where Renee and Neil actually are. Aha.
Hey,
And
Jessica,
yeah.
are they here?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, we had to like fill out the form to get the link that you'd sent, so that's why it took a second.
Totally. I think that makes perfect sense. And I did the same thing to test this whole thing out. Okay. Suspenseful pause, and they're back.
Yay.
Okay.
and,
Renee and
and
Neil.
stress. You're on mute.
Yeah, you're muted, dears.
There we are. I hope
There we are. Okay. We can hear you.
you can hear us. Sorry about that.
Yes.
We had major technical issues.
Boy.
So I'm using my telephone.
Okay.
So bear with us while we sort of reset up here.
Is that going to work?
Fine.
Oh, it's going to work? Yeah. Sorry, everyone.
No worries. What is my tagline? We too. So this whole conversation is part of a program that I started this year called We Too, and the subline or the tagline is real life stories with real life couples who have real life tech challenges. So it is. Okay. We're not even recording, but I'm about to record. Let me figure out how to do that. And then how about while I do that, Renee and Neil, and how about everyone else take a breath? A breath. It's recording. Does it say it's recording? No.
I don't see that.
I see, yeah, computer
Yeah,
recording
it
is on.
does.
Okay. Okay. Well, we're right on time.
Right
From
on
my
time.
perspective, I had a client come today 32 minutes late to the session. I don't normally for any client show up for them that late, but special circumstance. Anyway, relative to other things, right on time, y'all. Welcome to the season 1 finale of We Too. As I said, real life stories with real life couples. I'm doing some sort of intro for the recording. You've already heard all of this. For 3 months, each month, I've interviewed one couple. And it started with Renee and Neil. Quick raise of your hands so everyone can see you. Who were brave season 1 couples who launched the whole season. And then Annie and Craig bravely said yes to follow, raising their hand. And to conclude us, Hazel, Grace, and Nico were episode 3. Yes, with the matching beautiful dies, which are on your episode as well. So season 1 was these 3 episodes. And the way this panel came about, whatever we want to call it, conversation, was Renee and Neil, do you want to tell the story or do you want me to go ahead and just recap? This panel came about because of after my interview with Renee and Neil, there was a certain sort of happening that happened. Do you want to tell the story?
Yeah, just that people, several people came up to us or asked us in, different places if they can ask us questions like, hey, can we hang out? We want to talk more. We really enjoyed your video. And so I just got that hit, like there's a market, or not a market, but there's like some more interest in that. And I thought it would be really interesting also to just be able to hear people's questions and also learn from other people and be able to talk to the other couples. So yeah. You so graciously agreed to play along.
I agreed to play along. I mean, this is all an experiment, as are most creative projects. And just hearing like Renee and Neil were like, help, we can't go to the grocery store without people asking us about our relationship. Can you set up a forum so, we can just straight up have a little space to ourselves and then answer these questions in real time. So happy to play along. Okay. So this is the first time that we're doing this. What I'd love to do is I think just ask each of you a first opener question, which is, why are you here? Why is this worthwhile or important? You said yes to the interview. So this is in essence the same question, but that you're leaning in one more time, that you're letting yourselves be in a live way witnessed by a group of people. Would you each be willing to share just a little bit about why this is important, especially if this is hard in any way for you? What had you say yes anyway? I'll let you just decide who wants to start.
Well, I'll start off.
Oh, Michael Callahan, I'm asking the couples. Thank you very
I'm
much
sorry.
for being so willing. You can answer that question too. I can always count on you. Oh my God. I'm going to ask our couples, and that's who I'm going to spotlight for tonight. Hazel, Grace.
I'm here because in my experience, it feels rare that there's people in long-term couples who are thriving and healthy, and I think it's even more rare to get a glimpse of what it actually looks like behind the scenes. And if me and Nico here sharing our story can support and help others, may it be so.
Yeah, I think that we are. Jessica, did you want to respond to that or should we go?
I'm just going to jump in because yeah, absolutely, Hazel. Like, really, I think advice columns are all about like what's gone wrong, but we so rarely hear about what goes right. And to be able to share that is quite profound, and to hear that back from the community as well has been really, really amazing.
And just to have conversations about it, like to bring relating into the open, I think is so important. We do so much of this behind closed doors, and people see, especially with like social media land, there's particular aspects of relationships that people see. Even this is one, it's short bits, but the more that we can bring it into the open and get vulnerable, I hope that then that encourages other people also to get vulnerable and talk about what's working, what isn't, and just that it is challenging to relate, that it's something we're all working at in some way. And yeah, that's my passion.
Yeah. And then I think I see this as we're kind of making a collage. It's like there's a snapshot of us at a certain point in time, a snapshot of each of the other two respective couples. And every moment we're kind of making this kaleidoscope or collage. And I did listen to a lecture the other day from Ram Dass about be here now. So it's like, what is each now? How is that? And I studied history in grad school and college, and that is change over time. And as the couple that's been together probably the least amount of time, I was laughing with Craig before we got on. It's like so much has happened since we did this in February. Like you met my parents. Like oh there we've had kind of these landmark things because we have a more compressed timeline too. So it's been fun to even just have that reflection in the past and then also looking forward. Like what are we excited about this summer? Seasons are changing. Yeah. You want to add anything?
Yeah, and I'm just a super village advocate, and to me, we've lost kind of seeing what the intimate parts of relationships are. And to me, it's like how do we allow people in to see what is like the deeper aspects of these relationships? And it's kind of it's not easy anymore. It's hard to see the deeper elements of relationships now.
Mm. Beautiful. I'm
Constantly evolving, I would say, not unlike the labyrinth snake here.
constantly evolving. Yes, not capturable in a 1 hour panel or a 1 hour interview, but certainly this gives us so much more living depth, especially getting to see you interact with each other and then as a partners and then partners with other partners, just living depth. Someone wrote me today and said, thank you for creating space where we can have blueprints for healthy relating. One of you said, I think Hazel Grace, alluding to how many examples there are of relationship breakdowns or toxicity in relating, blueprints for healthy relating, and how much we learn from watching. I have a very young child, so there's all this research about mirror neurons, right? But mirror neurons, basically this idea that something that is seen then becomes internalized in the kind of neuronal network in the brain. But it's really you are in me. That's in fact what a mirror neuron is. So I want these healthy examples to be in me. Yes. Then we all have a better chance of patterning that we want to pattern out. Okay. So
I'd love to
please,
add one thing to that too is
jump in.
just you know having the variety of examples like when I sort of started on this journey of making the relationships that I wanted, the realization of like, oh, we get to create whatever we want in relationship. And, if we have examples of that and the huge variance of how that can look, it's so inspiring to just like, get to create whatever it is that we want in relationship truly from the ground up.
Like, oh, that's possible. I didn't know that was on the menu too. Yes, amazing, expanding the possibilities. Well, in the interest of time, I'll tell you, if you listened to episode 3, which I hope you did, you heard that Hazel Grace also interviewed me and my partner. Wow, that was humbling. I got to really feel how intense it is to be under the spotlight. But and that will come out whenever it comes out. Tune in at your own risk. That was a beautiful experience, really. You asked us to respond to this question, Hazel Grace. When was the first moment, or what was a moment when you first felt a spark of connection or a feeling that this person really was going to be special for you? So my thought is to ask each of you to give us just a little glimpse of your backstory. And then from there, I'd like to move into forward story, but a little bit of your history, a little bit of what was one of those first moments. It's going to be the short version. When you felt this person mattered to you. I'm paraphrasing the question, and I hope it's okay that I borrow your brilliance. Yeah. So, who would like to answer? And I just want to say for those listening, one, I've asked our couples to reflect on a few prompts, but not all these prompts they've had a chance to reflect on. A lot of these are going to be real fresh, and this one is going to be. And two, I'd love for you to ask some questions too. So, if at any point you want to raise your hand, come off mute, please do, or just message the chat. We'll get those questions in the pipeline. Who wants to answer this first question first?
We can start. I mean, I'll share the thing that I think we didn't talk about this,
No,
obviously. But I remember Neil and I were we had met already. We both have a background in marine biology. Neil's still doing that. And we met on the beach and we had a great time. There was definitely a spark there, but then we traveled to go to the Salmon Festival at one point, and we picked Neil up, or maybe he was in the van, they picked me up. I get in the car, sit in the back seat with him, and we could not figure out the seat belts. And we just started trying to tie them together. And we were just goofing around. And we drove from here to Vancouver, BC, and we laughed and just goofed around the whole time. And that was basically the trip where we totally fell in love. And we hadn't really known each other that long, but it was yeah, there's something good here. We will be playing for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so you. Thank you. And I think maybe each couple, maybe if you're willing to tell one story, yeah, and we'll do it like you two did. Yeah, who's next?
I'm happy to share. Now, I was going to ecstatic dance at Culture, and Craig was walking up the stairs in front of me, and it was his butt, his juicy derriere, that caught my attention, and I felt very magnetized. And so I was eyeing him on the dance floor. I was like, is he going to make a move? No, kept going over to some beanbag chairs. So finally, towards the end of the evening, he planted himself on a red couch, and I was like, I'm going in, I'm making my move. And so sat down next to him, and we talked and exchanged numbers. And the next day, then I sent him a video of me dancing in my pajamas to Don't You Forget About Me with a clear message. And I think he said at that point, he was like, oh, she's flirting with me.
And for clarity, I don't feel like I ever get flirted with. It's such a rare occasion. And so I wasn't ready for it. And we just had such powerful conversation on that couch, right from the beginning. We just dove deep right away. And there was, even now, there continues to be kind of awe in the things that we learn about each other.
I love
we go make little pilgrimages sometimes to the red couch and thank it.
Yeah.
And I happen to know that venue, but it's in Seattle, right? It was a dance venue in Seattle. Yeah. Amazing. I didn't know that. Hazel, Grace, and Nico.
I know you said one story, but we're going to make it so succinct and weave together. So I met Nico. I was facilitating a workshop. It was in the realm of intimacy, and he was a participant, and everyone was going around saying their names, and he said his name, and I said, ugh, not that guy. He's young and dreads, and I was like, And then later in the workshop, I went over to them because he was sitting by himself, and I was making sure he felt included, and he looked up at me, and I was like, it was like an experience. I was like, oh my gosh, he's gorgeous. And then he asked me soon thereafter, for my pleasure, may I smell your body? Which means he was listening to the instructions from earlier. And then afterwards, he contacted me the next day to ask me on a date. And do you want to share your piece?
Yeah, so it was my amazing experience with the facilitation, but on our first date, we were engrossed in our conversation, and it's a little bit more intense, a little heavier, but we both found out that our mothers had both passed from cancer at 48 years old, and we were both 28 years old at the time in beside them and helping them transition. So it was it was a very powerful, just sort of like, whoa, kind of moment. So,
And his mom had died 2 weeks before. So I met him 2 weeks after his mom died, and they were 58, not 48.
oh, sorry, 50 math. I'm not gonna.
But and our mothers has been such a pillar of our connection, Vicky and Cindy, like to have that shared experience at such a, and we were all four of us and our moms were all four in our Saturn returns at the time of their transition. So it's been a powerful connecting point for us.
Wow. That is fun. Really. Thank you. I love how each of you chose to answer it and how each of the answers really helps me, I'd say personally, because I got to dive in to know you all, but helps me really deepen my understanding of you. Like I can see where you are now. I can see it in those initial seeds. So I see some questions coming in, and I'm just so grateful that you all opened the door already to let us feel just the poignancy and the sweetness of your origin stories. So I can ask these questions out loud. Walker and Karen, you posed one, and then Ben, you posed another one. Actually, here's what I'm going to say. Ben, are you able to stay for this answer?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to just say it out loud yourself?
Sure.
Okay, I'll let you just go right ahead.
Hey, Craig and Annie, this is for you. Loved your video. Loved everyone's video, actually. That's why I'm here. But you all talk about combining poly with authentic relating, and that seems scary to me. Can you talk about how, yeah, and complicated? Can you talk about how you manage those things, or do they support each other? Why did you choose that?
Want me to start?
Sure.
Uh, for me, and something that I learned like 12 years ago is that I was like kind of in that serial monogamy realm, and every time it just didn't work for me. And so I transitioned to poly relationships, and for me, it was just like a breath of fresh air. And yet I did all of it wrong in the beginning. So I feel like in the last few years, especially with Annie currently, it's like we're stepping into probably the best version of open relating that I've done. And so much of it is just based in how we communicate with each other. That is like truly the foundation of all of it. And like like it's pretty quick to tell when you're doing it wrong versus when you're doing it right, because when we do it right, it's so healthy and it like builds the love and we can feel that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as the person who had not as much experience or as depth with polyamory, I had dabbled. I had had open relationships before, but it was in the beginning, I really was like, oh, this probably isn't going to stick. I think that Craig has a very full life with two other big life partners and land and a community. So it was very interesting for me to go through this process, and we were able to talk about it, where I kind of expected that I was going to get hurt, especially in the beginning. I was like, this isn't going to work. And yet I can't resist. Spoke to that magnetism earlier. So I've been pleasantly surprised. And I'd say for me, there is also this deepening trust, this almost unclenching of like, okay, this is real. And we're choosing each other. And so I've had to go through, and some has been hard, and these undulations of kind of trusting and allowing, and then also like, ugh, this is uncomfortable and new, but wait, I'm still okay. Like, wow. So there's really been this kind of discovery process along the way, and just deepening and enriching and falling in love with a lot of the other people that Craig loves in the community. And then what's been coming up for me recently too is, am I choosing this on my own terms? I'm not just doing it because I'm in Craig's slipstream. And how can we be really clear? Because that's how I can bring the best energy and the best Annie to Craig and everyone else I care about. And that has all those kind of concentric rings. So, and I'm open to a follow-up, Ben, if there's a specific component of the combining of polyamory and authentic relating you're interested in, we can also go there.
And I want to add one quick thing. When we first started dating, I'm like, Annie, be ready for more love than you've ever had in your life. And one of the things that exists in my world for sure is a lot of people speak to how much they love each other. And Annie, oh my God, has just just has been a magical unicorn in that world. It's like so many people love her as a human.
And I'm really grateful because one of the things I kept saying to Craig in the beginning is like, I'm not sure what I'm doing. And he's like, that's actually working for you because you're just being you. So it's like I didn't really have the rule book or instructions or top 10. And yet I was intuitively just kind of like, okay, here we go. And that's been a really refreshing and beautiful way to go about it.
Well, let me jump in because I see Hazel, Grace, and Nico having a lot of nonverbal resonance here. Would you two?
Thank you.
Yeah. And Ben, did you? I know you have to go, so I'm tracking that in mind. But did you want to add anything more to your question? And then maybe Hazel, Grace, and Nico can jump in if they want. Did you want to add anything more?
No, that was very good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I'll add to you, feel free to reach out to us anytime. We would happily chat about it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I will. I will.
Mm-hmm.
I was like jumping up and down, Annie, because I had a similar-ish journey at the beginning of our relationship in the sense that I've practiced polyamory for 22 years, so that's part's not new to me. But when I entered our relationship, he was married 5 years. They built their own house out of cob with their hands and their feet, and a series of things happened during COVID, and I basically moved in with him and his wife, and I was living in in their van or a tent outside, and
Unfinished bathhouse,
unfinished.
tiny little space. The house was only 500 square feet.
And he was also falling in love with a new lover, and I essentially left my house that I had just purchased in Denver, Colorado, where I'd been living for 15 years. That's where all my clients and community were. And I'm driving cross country March 14th, 2020, driving to Northern California to be with this married man who's falling in love with another young, beautiful 24-year-old woman. And the way I describe it was like my head was saying, this makes no sense. And my heart was controlling my gas pedal of just keep driving and moving towards. And it was terrifying because I was basically like leaving everything behind. But my heart, it was undeniable what was true in my soul and my spirit and my heart. And it was for sure one of the most courageous things I've ever done in my life. And I'm, 7 years later, I can now say it was worth it. But in the time when I was driving out, I was like, this is stupid. I was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? This is dumb. Turn around. So that's why I was like jumping, like some similar thread, what you were sharing, Annie.
Thank you.
And I really love that share. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like finding amazing people that we can trust and lean into exploring those seemingly crazy, wild, weird new experiences and being like, oh, there's a lot of love here. I think I can lean in and trust that we can take care of each other in a good way. So yeah, I really love that story. Thank you for sharing that.
Beautiful. I couldn't help but invite you two to weigh in. Just one, the nonverbals, but two, I know that you practice poly. Everyone who comes into this series, though, is really doing their relationship in their own way. So we can put categories of monogamy and polyamory or consensual non-monogamy, but each of you has your own version of how you make it work. I want to also highlight just that Ben was asking about a kind of a body of practice called authentic relating, which I teach, several people on this call are familiar with and teach. But just to touch in on each of you in your interviews talked about very specific tools that you use and their practices and their communication tools that you depend on to keep your relationship healthy, on track, not snagged by the day-to-day stresses, and also help you recover when you do get underwater, because you all talked about that too. And so just the piece of the question that I want to highlight is that built into everything you all said is a lot of tools and skills and practices. There's so many. So this leads us to a question that came in from Walker and Karen. And Walker and Karen, do you want to voice that question yourselves in your own voice? Because this really gets us to, no, you don't want to.
Yeah, it was Walker's question, but I mean, I'll voice it because it's like I love it so much. It's the what is your most successful tool when you get in conflict? You know, I think the like, and that's going to be unique to each of us, and it's unique to the like I have different things I do with different people. So I'm just curious what really works for each of you because you might have a secret sauce that helps the rest of us.
Jump in.
I can go. So we have Hazel Grace and I have a whole system. So it's many things, but also a concise amount of things called the Art of Repair that uses the word repair as an acronym that Hazel Grace channeled into this world brilliantly and has made succinct. But I say that if I was to single out one skill in there that is so universal and so helpful and is just amazing and always worth practicing and learning how to get better at is reflective listening.
What I heard you say is that the most important tool is reflective listening. Did I get that right?
You did. Thank you for asking.
Okay.
So it's really profound in every relationship all over the board everywhere, but to be an intimate relationship and really get one another, really be I like to say emotionally current, like really on the same page. Reflective listening really gets you there, and then it just opens up all kinds of doors.
Well, and reflective listening when there's been trigger. I mean, it's one thing to do it as a pretty sophisticated practitioner who can listen and reflect, and we're all kind of able to be playful right now, but you just pissed me off, and I'm still going to find the ability to regulate myself enough and then engage in this tool, or maybe the tool helps me regulate, or both. But I just want to emphasize that is a skill that is worth practicing in regulated times. And then it is an advanced skill that you two are practicing when you're using it in the aftermath of some trigger. Ideally, of course, when you're past the bulk of the charge, but still. Hazel Grace, do you want to weigh in on that?
Well, I would say just to jump in on that is the pause, because if there isn't availability for the wow, that was a lot. Okay, let me try to regurgitate what I heard you say. If it's too much, then just being like, I would lovingly like to take a break and come back to this when we're both able to do that.
Yeah.
And I can be brief. My fear is I always take up too much space, so I'm gonna try and like be succinct. One of the things that we practice is we commit to what we call clear the ones and twos, and what we mean by that is imagine a spectrum of intensity or hurt or activation. 1 is like we're chill. 10 is like fight, flight, freeze, off the charts. So we're committed to clearing the little baby things, the ones and the twos, so that when we do have to repair, we're just repairing that thing. We don't have a backlog of stuff, and we're able to like clear things quickly because there's nothing else to clear other than that thing. And if we avoid clearing the ones and the twos, they become 8s, 9s, 10s. It's like one paper cut's not a big deal, but you get 1,000 paper cuts, it's a big deal. So clear the ones and twos is one of our commitments.
I love that.
I think, Hazel, that you articulated something that Renee and I spoke about, which is that like letting those, dealing with the small things. And I really love how you articulated that. Something I really liked about your interview is just like clearing the ones and twos. Like Renee and I do a good job of that, like not letting those little things, so this can build up resentment. And I think also sometimes you're like, what, I think, we see some, or I don't know, those ones and twos can become something much bigger, or like they're a metaphor for something else. But if you're clearing them and like working through those, then they don't become that. So, and I like the pause too. We had a big argument this week, and I was just like, I need to just pause and listen instead of react. And
which was great because I went full rage.
Yeah, that's pretty rare, and it's scary.
Yeah,
but
felt good to me. But then, yeah.
But and then we had a really good conversation later, because we both, you got your rage out. I felt your rage and was like, well, she doesn't do that very often. So she's clearly, this must be very important to her. Yeah, I'm hearing what she's saying. We're thinking about it, and then we had a good conversation.
Yeah, notable. You're like, whoa, oh, I need to pay attention here. This is off the chart.
Yes, totally. Volume's at 11.
Like something that we have recently been able to revisit too is like, how do we want to come back together when there's conflict? And one of the themes was coming back to basics. Something that a video Craig found that he sent me from the internet was the concept of a leash walk. It's like your relationship check-in walk. And so now we have this kind of shorthand for like, let's go on a leash walk.
It's a very funny video. If you guys, we'll send it.
Yeah, we can send it as a follow-up link. And it's also, there's something too about facing the same direction. It's not as confrontational. And we made a list of things like making a meal together, cuddling, breathing together. And I feel like something that we got some feedback in a positive way about our interview was sometimes storytelling and creativity comes in. So last week we dipped into that, and I will just say there was a pigeon carrier and an amulet.
Yes.
And so like that's our weird way too to kind of alchemize it and really like be able to create a little distance, because sometimes this stuff is really fiery and tender and some of our deepest wounds. And we realized too that because we had a recent rupture, that it's like, oh, and it hurts so much because we care so much. And so we were able to like get to that place too.
And one of the things, coming back to even what you all said about clearing those little things, early on in our relationship, we used a process called radar, which I think ISTA uses and some other program uses. And what happened with that, we did that every single week for 6 months. And then we've stopped doing it, but now we just do it naturally. It has become part of our relationship. We are constantly checking in. What's going on with you? Is there anything alive? Is there anything that's hurting? Anything? And we just do that as soon as we see each other.
Yeah. Craig will use the phrase a lot, like, let's clear that energy. Let's kind of like, let's talk about it. Let's give it air and attention, and then we can let it go. And that's great because it becomes static after a while. If for me anyway, when I'm trying to hold it, and then it kind of becomes distracting, it takes up space. So it's like, how can we just like let that go?
I really love that. That's the check-in. We have a few different ways in which we sort of get to those check-in points, but actually like putting on the calendar, having a check-in time, even just to get used to that feeling and that rhythm of it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be on that date or whatever, but just that you remind yourselves to be like, oh yeah, let's really, drop back in is really, really important, I feel.
And what's cool with what we did is we wrote it all down. So we actually have an archive of these things that we processed. So it was really neat to, when we go back, we can go back and look at these things.
Yeah, I mean, we also put it in our agreements. Like part of our agreements are, here's how we want to show up for each other in conflict. And like I said, we recently refined those. So
well, how about we all take a deep breath, just appreciating the wisdom that just percolated through the room. Walker and Karen, or Walker, thank you for your question. Karen, thank you for giving voice to it, so we could really foreground this piece that is while we touched on it in all your interviews, it's so powerful to hear it side by side and to hear you go back and forth. I also just want to name the power of Neil and Renee, you naming, we had a big argument this week. That's so powerful just to name it. Like, yeah, and I see the other couples really just holding themselves, like just to say, yep, we're a healthy, committed, in many ways enviable couple. A lot of people look to. We had a big fight this week. In fact, my wife was raging. I also hear you laughing about it. So it might be tender. I also hear you're on the other side, or mostly the other side of it. But just thank you for that honesty. I think that itself is powerful. We have a little time left, and I'm going to pose the next question. But if any of the listeners have a question, pop on, bring your voice, or type it in, because I'd love for you to get yours answered tonight before we close. But I asked everyone to think about a turning point in your relationship. It certainly could be a contemporary moment. You are in a turning, or it could be a historic moment. But what was that all about, that unfolding? And what did you learn, or are you learning? I know that many of you have described phases in your relationship or chapters, and any relationship that is long term can relate to this. But I wonder who'd be willing to share, not everyone has to answer, a turning point in your relationship.
I can go. A big turning point for me is I have another partner, and we've been partners for 8 years, and we have a business together, and we live together. And when Annie met her and they got along and loved each other over time, holy shit, this, and it was something that I never expected. I wasn't prepared for. And the fact that they get along so well, and there's a dynamic with the three of us that we keep evolving because of our three separate energies has been just kind of mind-blowing for me.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
We can go next, I guess. I I don't know what you would say, but I feel like we're in a huge one right now. We just are sort of at the end of this parenting journey. We just graduated our son last year from high school, and our daughter graduated a couple years before that. Even like our dog is at the end of his life. He was like our family dog, so that sort of feels like this, in some way, this symbolic, it's symbolic of childhood, of ending also. And I think I just started graduate school, and we're in this big transitionary period where we're really talking a lot. And our interview actually was a great platform to sort of process, or inspiration for us to process too, around like what is next for us and what do we want both individually, now that we sort of don't have that parental raising young children thing that's like really like we're in this together, we have to do this thing, we're on this, like that project has come to completion. And so like how do we want to work together now, and what do we want, like I said, individually, and what do we want to do together? And it's like so destabilizing, but also so liberating, and like inspiring, and enlivening. Like there's so much here to just not be on autopilot, but to really look at it and choose what is next for us. So that feels like one of the biggest turning points I think that we've had in our relationship. For me, at least, it feels that way.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was so powerful in a lot of ways to just have Jessica ask those questions, like how do you deal with conflict, essentially, and then what are the things that keep your relationship together? And yeah, there's a lot. I think it was Annie. I think you mentioned something in your thing about keeping lists of things like favorite movies that the other one hasn't seen. Of course, Renee and I have been watching movies for a long time together, but also like places you want to travel. I'm like, oh my God, I just need to like do that at this point, like because we actually don't have to take two kids with us traveling. So and it's like, oh my God, like I don't know, last year, the year before we went, we like literally had a week together, the two of us. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So yeah, it's really interesting. I was thinking about turning points because the one that came to mind actually was when we got our dog. because Renee was like, you don't like dogs, all this stuff. And I was like, no, there's some dogs I like. And we got kind of the perfect scruffy dog. And it really was like sort of, I think, cemented the like core of our children's childhood. And kind of he was number one, Renee was like, oh, now you're on the floor making out with the dog again, Neil. But also just he was this sort of glue that held us together. I think we all like he was just this wonderful, like for kids to just have this like always loving entity in the house. So
yes, a turning point to get him, a turning point right now to be honoring his path, his impending passage. It's very tender to hear about that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to share. I am thinking more so of like a space of time. It was a sort of a gradual turning point, but I remember when Hazel Grace and I were newer in relationship, and we had just Hazel Grace had just moved in with us, and there was a lot of challenge and other partners, and there was a lot of intensity. It was also COVID, and so we were navigating like being in our COVID pods, and there was so much. There was so many layers. I was working more than I'd ever worked before when COVID hit. I work outside and I wear a mask anyway, so my business just like blew up. But noticing how with our relationship, and I would say even in comparison to other relationships I had going on at the time, when we had a rupture, when we had a challenge, and we were able to whether it was hard or crunchy or smooth or whatever, come back into connection and then feel stronger because of it. It just really, I just started really paying attention and honing in and focusing, and I was like, wow, like we're coming closer together with all of these, and some of them were really big and really challenging and really hard and really intense. And normally I tend to be more avoidant and will, put things off, but I was like, I'm excited to work these things out with this person because it's actually, it's hard and intense, but it's actually also like enjoyable in a deeply gratifying way of like, I feel our strength growing through that. Yeah. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
It's interesting. We keep talking about this like first year of our relationship because there was so much magnetism and intensity of togetherness, but also just a lot of challenge. But as I mentioned earlier, I had essentially moved out into Northern California with him and his wife, who graciously welcomed me into their home so that I didn't have to lose the home that I had just purchased. So I was like, with humility and like gratitude, was being welcomed in by Nico and his past wife. And there was a point where I had gotten to, which was, I'm so clear about what I'm wanting in a partner, including a polyamorous partner, and I'm wanting this experience of feeling met. And I had made the choice to kind of like leave my home and my community to be here, and I wasn't feeling like the same reciprocity of the meeting with me. And I made the very brave, courageous choice to say, I love you, and it feel from what I can feel, what you're available for is not what I'm looking for. And it's not a match. And even though he was the most epic partner I've ever experienced, I was willing to walk away because I'm like, I love you, and I'm unwilling to compromise for what it is that I'm wanting in a partner to share life with. And it was actually his wife, Avani, that I was sharing. I was like, I think I'm going to leave, and I think I'm going to go back to Colorado, and I think I'm going to transition our relationship. And she was like, can I tell you what's going on with Nico? I'm like, I'm all ears. Tell me what's up. And she said, uh, Nico's needing time alone. He's needing space, and he's overwhelmed. And when he gets overwhelmed, he gets quiet and kind of shuts down. And so we had a conversation. We even went to the river, and I was initiating a conscious uncoupling ceremony. And what was so beautiful about Nico, when I was like saying, like, I believe that I think I need to go back to Colorado because I don't feel like this is what I'm looking for. And it was all very sweet, and we were in tears. And he was just so generously and authentically like, if that is what supports you, and if that's if that's what you're needing, I totally support you. I don't want that, but I completely support you if that's in your highest good. And so we went down to the river, and we were having this ceremony, and there was this moment. It felt like a similar in the moment that I saw his eyes for the first time, like something cracked and something shifted, and I felt his like grief or sadness or like the longing of the possibility of us ending the relationship. And I was like, that's what I've been missing, feeling his like inness of like, I'm so in with this relationship with you, even though he didn't move across the country, and even though he didn't like leave all that, I could feel the anticipatory grief of that possibility of us of transitioning. And really, I haven't felt since that moment. I have never felt any, even though we've had some ruptures, that like I felt our mutual meeting inness since that moment about 6 years ago.
Ooh. I am so glad that I asked this question. Really want to appreciate everyone who answered it, but Hazel Grace, especially, thank you for that deep dive into that moment. You know, it's hard to put words to these things, a shift, but I felt his in it with me. Constantly navigating, can I stay? Can we work on this? I can't. I need to go. What makes the difference? One of my questions was about this theme. So many of the things that you've answered about 6 other questions. I just want to say the scope of each of your shares was so deep and wide. I saw another question come in, and I also want to acknowledge somehow we are at the end of the 1 hour that we said we would start. Let me skim this question. My parenting role is calling. Oh, okay. So this is just for everyone to hear. Thank you for your vulnerability, honesty, and authenticity. I'm myself a couples therapist, always seeking to learn what couples find creates the relationship depth. And I took some great insights for all of you. Thanks, Jessica. Oh, look at that, friends. So good. I mean, when we're in the role of couples therapist or coach, we've got a job to do, right? We get to just really listen to these couples without having any agenda whatsoever. And you all have really guided this conversation. For any of the couples, is there just any burning final offerings that you want to give the world through this call? It could be just make a shape. Yeah. So would all 3 couples be willing? Oh, your reactions are still on, dear. At least that magical one. Nico.
I would just like to say, bringing it back to what I said before, party time, is, just presencing like each and every one of us in our lives get to create the types of relationships that we want in our lives, and the sky's the limit. There might be a set path that's wrote for a certain relationship in this moment, and it can change. And we can call in new relationships, and we can continue to evolve and create whatever it is that we want in relationship with our own unique guidelines tailored to us and with another person.
What a beautiful note to end on, except for we're not going to end there. Hazel Grace and then Renee.
I didn't have anything burning until this guy said that thing, including Nico and I don't live together. and we each live in our own tiny homes, exactly 1 minute walk away from each other. And I can't be more of an advocate of one of the reasons why I think Nico and I are still in love 7 years in is because we have our own space. And I think that's pretty radical for a lot of long-term couples, for the possibility of having different spaces or even different rooms. And I just can't uh, suggest and promote sovereignty of space enough.
Yes, ironically, the space brings us closer. Jump in, wise voices. We're wrapping this up.
Yeah, I was thinking about coming on here today, and I was feeling care for people watching and just thinking about like there's this sort of bias here in that the couples who are coming and willing to be vulnerable, generally, I think all of us have some skill in relating, like for whatever reason, with something we sought on our own, going to workshops or whatever it is, that's attainable. Like other people can do that. But it's not that we have, come with all the skills and we just know how to do it, but it's that we have invested time and energy into learning how to do it better. And you can too. So I guess I was just thinking about that today and wanted to like, for anyone watching, it's like, oh, well, they can, like, sure, they are relating well because they have all these skills, but there was a time where we didn't, and there were other relationships that ended because we did, we learned from them, whatever, but
We didn't have the skills, and now we do.
yeah, but it's possible to get them.
I'm still learning more skills.
God, I love that you said that. So important to say. This is a person who is efforting, not a final product that just came hatched out like this. Ugh. If only you could have seen me 15 years ago, right?
Yeah, totally.
The desire to grow, I'd say, is a big theme for both of us as individuals, as a couple, in lots of things where we invest energy and intention. Mm-hmm.
And play and creativity. Relationships can be an art form.
Yep.
I like that.
Beautiful. And that really bookends this final lightning round. Nico and Craig, you echoed that same of just the creative sky is the limit. I heard you say, Nico, creative possibility and bringing our creativity in. And it sure helps to communalize the process in order that we plug into the bigger creativity. Because isolation, of course, kills the creativity, right? We go into survival. But then when we expand the base, it's possible what? To feel less alone. And then we can find our resilience. It is such an honor to have hosted this time with you and all the folks who I know are going to listen, but especially thank you for those who were here in person, even if you were listening and a little less on the active side, but thank you for your active listening. Thank you, Walker and Karen and Michael, for letting us see your faces. Ben was here earlier, and I hope you all will continue to tune into We Too. And also people have started sending me suggestions of couples you admire who you think would be worth spotlighting. So I want to put this plug in. If you know those folks whose experience might really help others, send them my way, put us in touch. We've got a few folks already lined up for season 2. Thank you again, and good night for now.
Thank you all.